Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's a chess show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and today's guests we have two professors. Ken Regan, welcome to the show.
Hello.
And
Yes. Thank you very much for having me on.
great, and of course we have also
I
Dan. Sorry.
I have to step away for a second. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay. Go ahead. So I'd like to mention that we also have today. Um, just a sec.
Doing the chess show. Yeah. All right. Sorry. Okay.
I have to adjust something.
Where's Dan?
I'm trying to introduce. Just a sec.
So I guess we'll have to snip, or maybe we can restart.
Okay, hold on. Since
Yeah, there seem to be a few technical glitches in the system today.
Chess.com had a technical glitch too. So.
okay, now I'm in service. Okay, sorry to not to introduce Dan Fleetwood. Welcome to the show, Dan. And today there are so many chess tournaments that sometimes I find myself never watching everything like almost 24 hours a day, and I'm watching probably 16 hours a day, maybe 18. And one tournament is finishes, another one starts. Right now there is a very interesting tournament when they're playing Blitz, 10 minutes per game, no increments. And so they're having 4 Swiss tournaments. 4 winners are going into next round. So it will be 4 tournaments, 4 times 4, 16 top players will play. And they have plenty of top players, like Prague is playing there, and Niemann, and
Yeah.
just stay with. But however, let's come a little bit back, and let's talk about well, actually,
Yes. Well, let's talk about where Niemann just came from. The
yeah,
previous event, the freestyle chess Grand Slam, where he lost in the final to Levan Aronian.
yeah.
And,
Levan Aronian was probably it's his biggest life success in all his short history. Well, actually, he won some World Cups or so and so. Okay, but it's one of them, definitely.
Yeah.
And as a prize money is concerned, maybe that's the biggest payout for him. Well deserved. If he could beat Carlsen and Nakamura and finally Niemann in all the same tournament,
Right.
very few people can brag about it.
And remarkable that that Carlsen showed as many cracks as he did, and yet came back to contest the final of the lower bracket, so to win the lower bracket. This time they did not have a double elimination further playoff against the champion, so Carlsen's win was only for 3rd place.
Why didn't they have their usual double elimination system? What's happened this time?
Yeah, maybe because it has more games and gets complicated. Plus, they have 2 separate time controls, and maybe considering this was also freestyle, it would be too much psychedelia at once.
Yeah,
So-
I also find this double elimination format somewhat confusing, and sometimes you're watching players and you don't understand what they're playing for, which bracket they're on, and how they converge that double elimination with single elimination, and what's happened in that case. I don't know. It's way complicated. You lost, so okay, next tournament you'll do better. But to provide the double elimination situation, especially for a player like Carlsen. It's almost impossible to imagine that you can lose 2 matches in one tournament. So
Yeah.
this is definitely. I was listening a couple of days ago, very interesting podcast on Levitov chess in Russian. Dubov was telling about his experience to second Carlsen in the first match against Caruana and against Nepomniachtchi. And he's telling a lot of very interesting things about how Carlsen organizes the training of his team, and how they're talking about different openings and how he chooses the openings with black and white. Very, very interesting. I think about listening it second time and take notes because it's so interesting. And but however, let's come to our tournaments that we just mentioned. Can you have some games from this Aranyan?
That plus the Women's World Cup, where two Indian women are
Exactly.
contesting in the final, and Divya Deshmukh has already scored a Grandmaster norm, and if she beats her compatriot Humpy Koneru, then she will win the overall Grandmaster title. She's already qualified for the women's candidates.
Yeah.
So
And this time they will have a match for the third place between two Chinese players, because the third place is also qualifies for candidates.
Oh, I did not realize that. Okay,
Yeah.
so I should take a look at that. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that ups the stakes.
that does up the stakes, yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let me now show. So let me actually begin with the very long game by which Divya Deshmukh beat Zhongyi Tan and qualified for the final. It's an opening I know something about. It's the Alapin Sicilian as white, however, deferred, not played on move 2, but waiting until black plays e6, which is a move I always like to see black play in the Alapin, because that told me right away that I knew I was going to get my pawn to e5 and the attacking configuration that I like. And here we go. So we've actually transposed into the main line of the Alapin with black playing e6. Okay. So this is in d6. And now what's funny, I always used to play bishop c4 here and allow my bishop to get kicked around. But white has time. White can afford to play this and play the bishop directly to d3. And that's because that's ultimately where the bishop wishes to go. And black apparently can't completely blow up the center after this move. So here we go, bishop d3 coming out, and black plays a little bit too sing-song in my opinion. The way I used to play it too, I used to play an early knight c3 in order to make room for the bishop on b1 if necessary, or if black takes, then I'm controlling the b4 square with my admittedly weak c-pawn. But I always regarded that as a trade-off that I could have. However, white's playing a little more slowly, and black makes a few maybe imperceptible slips, but it's hard to decide what to do because white's e-pawn is very easy to overprotect. Queen e2, rook e1. There's nothing else black can attack. Black's dissuaded from castling by the specter of capture on h7 with the bishop, or just white lying up on the diagonal. So now white plays to c4. White could also play bishop c2, but then the point is black gets bishop a6, and that would be the kind of position invasion. So this maybe is the question: can black get enough of a developmental initiative to offset what white's build up? Well, the way to do this is a very natural bishop b7 move, but she played knight c7, and now black is actually in trouble because black now has to go backwards. Well, black should have gone backwards. Now the knight on d3 does not have any support, and this is in trouble. Well, it can capture on c1, but in doing this maneuver with the knight, you've conceded white a huge advantage in development, and it's going to persist even after white's second best reply. Okay, white can actually play queen takes d8 check, black captures with the bishop, then knight d6 check is an absolute bone in the throat, and if black captures with the king, then white is going to gain tempi on both the major files. Okay, and this will be very, very strong for white, despite black having the two bishops. So, but anyway, Dejmuk played queen c1. So there's going to be a lot of back and forth play. But again, this is a case where the natural move is not very good. Black should castle for the purpose of giving black's queen a little bit of air on e8 if necessary, or just getting the king out of dodge so that you can play moves like knight d5 and not have bishop b5 check happen to you. So anyway, so this looks normal, but it's just tactically wrong. And white, I really don't understand why Dejmuk didn't make black's king move. Okay, very natural move, and then you can play h4 and start attacking on the king side, where black's rook on h8 is not really a good defender. However, Dejmuk captured, so now we get one of these two bishops versus two knights. But it must be said that again, the players are just rejecting natural moves. Bishop takes d5. Must have seen some kind of ghost with knight c3, I guess. You know, maybe this wins a pawn for white in the long run. But black will be able to get, black will be able to play a5. That's black's one source of play, and then black would have time to do that. But anyway, that's not what she played. She captured on d5. And that now queen f4. This is the computer being very cute. So what is going on in this position? This is worth knowing. All that's going on is white's knight is not attacked because black's queen is pinned, and this enables white to take over the d6 square. Okay, so white retreated a little bit too robotically, but white is still preserving an edge in this position. Because black's bishops are both very much under wraps. A5 does not have so much menace in this position. In fact, it might even promote white playing b5 and knight c3, knight c6, establishing another forward lock on the position. Plus f5 is a wonderful place for white's knight. Here we go. Now the knights are definitely coming into d6. It's very difficult to defend this position. White captured a pawn, didn't have to. Knight fd6 was certainly a good move. Knight bd6, playing a knight into d6. Anyway, white captured a pawn. Now, Dejmuk, at least, is very consistent with strategy. She's going to nurse this pawn advantage to eventual victory. And she actually, she has one more mistake in the offing. But, okay. So now again, naturally ask, why can't black capture on e5? Well, the reason why, so this is really weird. This rook traps that rook in the middle of the board.
That's cute.
Yes, because if it moves here, then this is even cuter. So black has to retreat. Okay, now that rook has been. So this now is sort of a stasis position, and maybe black is doing okay. Now white actually allows black to be doing more than okay, so white should play knight e2 and regroup. I need to study the past few moves more, why white allowed herself to be pushed back. Okay, well anyway, now with d4, a breakout move, black would even be better. She actually waits a move to play it. So now, white has to maybe win the game all over again. At this point, Dejmuk was under a minute. Now, there is a lump sum coming at turn 40, but that's 9 moves from now. So the game enters an Allegro phase. So anyway, this counterattacks. This was mistaken trade. Okay, and now white is actually okay again. But this maybe mutual time pressure. Degemock has gained a little bit more on the increment. But we reached this end game, and this is where I really started watching the game. White is up 2 pawns, but black has a bishop and some measure of potential counterplay. Can white nurse this to victory? So this is the part of the game that I saw. And here is where Degemock actually plays very accurately from here on out. So puts the knight on a nice central square, protects b4, now can start to create some opening lines. So bishop takes b4, he play rook takes b6. So instead, Degemock decides to mix it up that way. Okay. So now we have this tabia where white is up 2 pawns, but maybe really only up 1 pawn. How valuable is the double pawn? But it's still one fairly significant pawn. Black's rook is well placed behind it. So, but there are other things white can attack. White has a good unassailable central square for the knight that defends f2 and restricts black's bishop. But on the other hand, the knight does not assist the advance of the b pawn. So the engine does say that white is 3 pawns ahead, so there should be winning. But white still needs to formulate a plan. And the plan in this position, oddly enough, is to play to restrict black's king. You just have to execute it right. Okay, white decides to go into the rook ending, and this is a mistake compared to rook c4, but I don't think it's that consequential a mistake. So the question is, can black draw this position? Okay, there are positions with white having just 2 pawns of this kind that are drawn, but is this one of them? Well, it's very difficult to defend as black's king.
Yeah, when that king g7 is a mistake, that's a hard position, because I think it's automatic to put your king on g7 there, and
yeah,
yet here it loses.
Yeah, so it just right. So the reason why it loses is that maybe black cannot stop white from getting a passed f pawn. Let's see. Okay, so bishop b2, giving things back. So let's see. So h4. Yeah, so that's the point. And on the previous move, white should have played b7, and that would have actually been b7 is Zugzwang here. This is instructive. So forces black's book to move off the b file. Any move by black's king sets up a check for a skewer, except for this move. Okay, but then this move allows let's see, f4, and let's see, this is also Zugzwang. Now it really is Zugzwang. Black has to go back to g7. Okay, how many times we have to Zugzwang you here? Wow, this probably needs a lot.
This is really an amazing position, Ken.
Yeah, it needs a lot of calculation. Wow, what's going on? Let's see, king h6. White just plays h3. White's just bringing up the troops here. How's white going to get through? Sometimes the engines go in circles. Okay, so king g5 is the consequent move. Now that does force black to play a weakening move. Okay, so now king h7. Okay, and now h4, king g7. Let's see if we see why white should penetrate. h5, king h7. Now what? Okay, it looks like king h4 doesn't seem to have any point here. King f5 must be the consequent move. But I guess white is just now going to get over to the queen side and build a bridge. Wow, this is very, very strange. So there's a lot of the reason actually is simply that white is going to be able to trade rooks, and then black's f pawn is a liability, and eventually black will lose by the famous triangulation with the pawn on f6 and the pawn on h5 h6. So maybe that's what the engine sees a long time out. So this should be looked at. I've gotten too far ahead of the story. So
Wow.
we'll go back to the game. Or Dan, do you have any insight here? You see what I see?
Nope.
With the
Nope. I confess to being totally lost in this position.
okay. Yeah. See, I see the Tavia with white's pawns on f6 and h5, and a famous triangulation that allows white's king to come into g6 and win. But that may not even be necessary. Anyway, black played rook b1, and now h4. Here's the thematic way to. Okay, so now h5. So now we're going to get this kind of play. But meanwhile, white is not yet committed to playing b7. So now this very nice move. Okay, so if rook takes f4, then white gets the rook out from behind the pawn, and black is trapped b7 and rook c8 check. So black has to capture with the g pawn, and now we're going to get the same kind of positions that we had, but notably worse shape for black, because white is not committed to b7 for one thing. So Tan decides to launch a desperate counterattack, but it does not work. Okay. She's going to try counterattacking again. So, whoops. Oh, I must confess, I did not realize that there was this mistake. So rook e7, king f6, and then rook h7. Boy, this is another subtlety. Wow. Now you play rook h7. And because you're threatening to take the pawn with check, okay, you capture this, then black captures you, and now how do you win this position? I guess you win because black's king is cut off.
Right, yeah.
Okay. So this therefore was mistimed and allows black actually to drive white's king back. So rook g1 check. Now black is back in the game. Okay, so white lost all the progress with the king.
Mm-hmm.
And now black can win a pawn. So okay, man, I have to say I'm less impressed than I was when I was following the game piecemeal. But again, really tricky rook ending. There's a lot of content here. So black should just play with the rook and keep the king on h4. Why is this wrong? Well, it's actually maybe miscalculated tempi, I guess. It's a real mystery here. Whoops, we repeated the position. It wasn't at no harm to white. Okay. Okay, well, black is just going to be out of checks, and here we go. So, and now Tan gave up. The white's king is gonna capture f4, even if black promotes in the corner and wins white's rook. So, well, a really gritty game, and most of it played on the increment by Dejmuk. So it, she was never had more than 2 minutes on her clock if I click at random times in this game. So she had 3 minutes there. So anyway, so that's so that final resumes tomorrow.
Yeah.
So now let's look at the other headline-making game that won the championship for Aronian. And this was very level-headed play in the freestyle game. So the pieces are on funny squares. And although this must be said, this is a little more natural because at least both rooks are in their respective corners. And there are no glaring weaknesses. Every pawn is defended by a minor piece, or b2 by the queen in this position. So e2 by the king. So you play, so it looks like a queen's gambit type position. Black already is uncovered an attack on the white queen. And the amazing thing is that Aronian gets a significant advantage in just 5 more moves. But maybe knowledge of white is playing typical strong point chess, d4, c5, e5, multiply protected. White's bishop on g1 is a factor for that as well. And here we go. Now 4 pieces bearing down on c5 and d4 overprotected. So now white begins a flank action. Just white is now preparing to castle, and black castles. Okay, and h5 may be a little bit extravagant. And now e4, and here we are, 5 moves later. This position is very obviously appealing for white. White's 2 bishops and knights are perfectly supporting the pawn center. White has forward outposts. Black does not. Black has the only thing black can maybe hope to get it, sink the knight onto f4, but the knight on d6 has to move for that to happen, and there's no place that knight on d6 can move to except e8. So this is definitely a large advantage. Moreover, the h5 move, even though it's not criticized, was definitely extravagant. And what makes it extravagant was Niemann's next move. When I saw Niemann's next move, I just thought, oh, this is going to be a crush. So a6, just not sensing danger. The engine says that at least a5 and b5 would have been a little quicker, or play the knight b8 move. Do something to get student body forward to engage white's pieces. But this even structurally is suspect because it allows white to play a5 in some positions. And then black has a backward pawn. So however, white just builds up the potential energy of the position.
Again, what I'd like to say is that, okay, now obviously white is much better, probably close to winning position. But the problem with this freestyle chess is that the games are being played, and afterwards they're not really analyzed. It's very unclear what black exactly did wrong in this game so far as to be already in almost a lost position after
Right.
h6, right? So there's I think something to do, it has something to do with the very first opening moves. The defense of c6, f6, it makes so many holes in the center of black's position that it's strategically, it's already quite inferior already. And few more inaccuracies like a6, almost it's almost like a position is defeated just because of the very weak opening.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this position already has the seeds of victory for white. Harmonious development, outposts, white's bishops already contributing more than black's. Black's hit less consequential squares, even though they're on the same squares.
Because if you ask a question, so what did black inaccuracies or mistakes made later on in the game that became so inferior position? I don't see any inaccuracies. It's just
it's true. I mean,
much worse.
It's hard for black to get in c5. So white got in c4 right away, and maybe we have to analyze to see whether c5 is possible. I mean, d takes c4 is the best move according to Stockfish. c5 probably doesn't work for Tempe reasons, and f6 looks so natural, bringing out the bishop. But black, I think, actually has to, challenge white's center, and e5 is the logical way to do that. So maybe c6 right away in this position is actually, maybe this is tactically better because you're threatening e5 right away. Maybe let's see, is e5 feasible here? Let's see, is this bad? Yeah, it's not liked by the computer. White just gains too many tempi on you. Wow. Okay, well, yeah, that's not easy game.
You know what? Maybe d5 was wrong reply on the first move. I think black, for various reasons, should avoid immediate confrontations with the white and maybe take a slower approach. Position. Maybe c6
or c5, maybe.
c5.
No, c5 already thinks it's a half point advantage to white. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, d5. But see, c6 probably should be looked at.
Yeah.
Just take a slower approach because white is, I think the position itself already in favor, starting position probably is already in favor of white during
Yeah,
the first move. So black has to avoid confrontations as much as possible.
yeah. That is said to be one of the drawbacks of freestyle chess, that some
Mhm.
positions are bigger advantages to white than the classical setup. I mean, you'd
Yeah.
expect that just by random draw. Um, so, um, at any rate, after a6, Levon Aronian's play is very logical. Or overprotecting d4, and we have absolute mastery of the c5 square, where now if black even challenges that piece with b6, it creates weaknesses on a6 and c6. So instead, Niemann goes all in, but now not only is c5 a permanent weakness, but this enables uh, Aronian to start the student body moving. And well, if so, black captures on e5 is just disgusting. Okay, everything's weak and black is back with pawns. If the knight moves away, well, there's no real. Oh, let's see. We put it on c4. Okay, just white keeps building up, is what the computer says. Anyway, so Niemann captured here. Um, and it is true that if white captures rook takes a4, this is where worth seeing, then black has gained a reasonably good square for the knight, and now at least there's some internal logic to black's position. So the question is, for judgment, how do you judge the position that comes out of e takes d6 and takes e7? Well, the one thing for judgment is that this has greatly weakened black's king side, and black already has to be careful where to put the rook. So went rook e8, again, the most natural move, more natural than t7, which weakens e6. But here we go. The problem is that now black can't defend c6, whereas on d7 would have been able to play rook c7, or I don't know, bishop g3. There are all sorts of monsters happening that would have hung d4. So there's all sorts of monsters happening. So now Aronian is just going to be a pawn ahead. And there is some very accurate play. So White's play was noted by the commentators as being especially accurate to preserve this pawn advantage and deny black counterplay. Actually, the pawn advantage has now become an exchange advantage, although there are positions where white is going to give back the exchange. Okay, so anyway, so this is a question of, can black gain enough counterplay on the king side? And if white's rook moves, then black really does have enough counterplay. But there's bishop takes bishop e4, pinning the rook to the knight. He even has to respond to deflect the bishop. And now here comes rook takes f7. Okay.
Very precise play.
Right, very precise. And now there are no more bishops on the board. Rook and knight don't coordinate so well. And now white just has to avoid black's tricks. But eventually white is just going to win the b pawn, and that leaves a winning position. So for instance, you don't want black to get knight takes c3 and would check, because then black could go back knight b5. Oh no, knight b5 hangs the knight, but sometimes knight b5 is on, even in that position, because black could have b2. Anyway, white's king comes in, black tries supporting the knight, supporting the pawn, but white just has to play very simply to stop. Now there's a tricky fork, but Aronian stops that. This is a nice tempo move. Black can't capture on c3. And eventually Niemann just ran out of tricks and gave up here. Okay.
Wow.
So the white's going to corral the pawn on b2, and then it's just lost. So very good grandmasterly win by Aronian, and he still had 15 minutes left on his clock.
Amazing. Well, Aronian played very strong tournament throughout. He didn't show any weakness in any parts of the game. He was very steady and perhaps that's the most suitable form of chess to his style, because he's very good strategically. He's very good tactical player. He has good nerves. And, wow, very, very amazing. Yeah.
Yep. And the last thing I'll quickly touch on are the U.S. Junior and Senior Championships.
Sure.
In the junior, Andy Woodward outran Burlington Hardaway and the Mercurial Abhimanyu Mishra. And they all played very steady. The only one of the top three to lose was Burlington Hardaway losing to Justin Wang.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this might have been a coronation for Hardaway.
Mhm.
But Woodward played very steadily, defeated the four tailenders, and drew the other five.
Yeah, very impressive.
Yeah, and then in the women's tournament, here we go. Women's tournament was also a clear victor. Zoe Tang. Again, this is a real race. Megan Paragua put up a great pursuit, and also Rachel Lee. But Zoe Tang won 5 games and drew 4. And so she clinched in the last round as beating Jasmine Sue. Okay, in a very nice game. And finally, the seniors, some of my peers too. This has gone to a 3-way tie. With,
Could have been 4 if Christiansen could defend that position against Dlugi. It could have been
right.
4-way tie.
This is something for Dan.
Yeah.
So this caused a lot of merriment. Yasser Seirawan told the story of how he had a 3-day game in China, and his team captain, or against a Chinese player, sorry, and his team captain eloped while the game was going on. That was Donaldson eloping with Akhmalovskaya. But actually, I was watching this game. I was watching this game because I was waiting for it to end, so that I could screen the games. And actually, there's a really fine point here. So this is worth talking about. So it's black smooth. Dlugi is black. You want to make practical chances. Obviously, the position is objectively drawn. So my inclination in this position would be to play h4, push those doggies forward. And then white plays a5. And then what's going to happen is the bishop's going to win the rook. Black's going to play g2. White's going to play bishop take g2, take. You like queen, you'll have king to queen each, obvious draw. Yep. So, but what Dlugi found out was that you can lose a tempo to win a pawn. So he played king e6, and then d7 forces king e7. But now the point is we're going to play that same similar sequence of moves, but instead of black's rook sacrificing itself for the a pawn, black's rook is going to collect the d pawn. Okay, in a position where, this is the other brilliancy of what Dlugi calculated. Dlugi calculates that he can win white's bishop because black queen's first, and white's king cannot stay glued to the bishop. So black's just going to play queen c3. And the upshot is that black entered a position with an extra rook pawn. Now that's subjectively drawn, but here is the juncture at which the game goes from winning to losing. Sorry, drawn to losing for white. So, and this is just really insane. So let me actually call up the endgame server here and put the position on the board. Okay. Where's white's king? Is it on d7, I think? Let's see. Let's make sure. Oh, yeah, it's on d7. Okay. So white can draw by playing queen f7 or queen a8. The more central looking queen d5 loses in 68 moves. And also notably, queen a2, which would be blocking the advance of black's pawn, also loses. All right. However, we play queen d5. Okay, now king f2 is the winning move, and let's see, is that what black played? No, black played queen e4. So we are now back in the drawing zone, but there comes something even more delicious coming up. So queen b3 check, king g4, queen g8 check. Okay, king f4. Similar position to what we had before, except for the different position of black's queen. Let me play these moves here. Queen, out jack. That's not what I meant to do. Back. Okay. Queen b3 check. Okay. King g4. Still in the drawing zone. Queen g8 check. Notice queen b2 was there too. Okay. Still fine. Now king f4. Now, the only move to draw in this position is queen a2. So not giving any check. Not even queen b8 check, which looks like a good check, but queen a2, a very defensive move of the kind that in my write-up of the Kasparov versus the World endgame in 1999 meant that the defender would lose, although I was defending against a passed g-pawn. The difference, however, though, is that black cannot give check on the b8 to h2 diagonal and advance h7. So once black's pawn did get to h7, although there are configurations where that's a draw, white never entered them. So I think I'm right that white is that black was winning for the entire rest of the game, although did not play optimally. But whoops, that's not what I meant to do.
Yeah, it's too difficult to defend this position over the board, because even if there is objectively a draw, it's highly unlikely that even Gradmeister can defend over the board. It's just too difficult.
Yeah, I mean, black's queen is out of position. That's the problem with this. So anyway, so Dan, any remark on this? This was this game went to turn 155, and apparently, let's see, there were some. This, by the way, this is an illusion. So it looks like the game is drawn because the engine can't see what's going on, I think. Let me just double check this. Maybe I didn't check this well enough. Let's see. Okay, so so white's queen on black's king, where king's on b7 and b4, and see. So all this is still in the losing zone. So even though black's queen is on e7, let's see if that makes a difference. Okay, it's still in the losing zone, even though the engine, which doesn't always have oversight of these positions, is giving a value that makes it look like a draw. I haven't taken the time to play through every move, but my spot checks said that this was always in the losing zone, which is remarkable, because it's because of the position of white's queen. Usually king in the opposite corner is the way to defend against a rook pawn. So.
Wow, what a game! I thought that when I was younger and studying chess theory, in this type of endgames, the defending side, like white in this case, should keep its king on either a4 or a5, which would be very difficult to exchange the queens for the stronger side. But for some reason, I'm pretty sure that Christiansen knew.
You might be right. I remember that about where the king should be.
That's right. So Christiansen obviously knows all that, and yet he didn't play it like that. Maybe in practical game, it was quite difficult to achieve the situation where you can actually conduct the king maneuver to a4 or a5. And in practical game, you're always dealing with some immediate threats and sequence of moves, and sometimes you forget about the strategic considerations. But nevertheless, it was very, very interesting game. And well, next time we'll talk about the playoffs, how they will play out.
Yeah.
In the meantime, thank you so much to you and to Dan for
Yep.
today's program. And we'll see you next week, same place, same time. Have a great
Okay.
weekend, everybody.
All right. Thank you. Yep. Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.